And the award for newest Yuri on Ice goes to My Hero Academia Season 2. Dear God, let's look at how many awards they won from this excuse of an anime awards. Let's see, so there's Best Animation, Best Opening with peace sign, third, Best Action, fourth, Best Hero, meaning Deku won the award. Number 5, Best Villain, which is Stain from My Hero Academia. 6, Best Girl with Ochako. And number 7 with Best Boy, Todoroki. Need I say more? There were so many things about this year's Crunchyroll Anime Awards that either made the awards better or made the awards worse. For one thing, there were definitely a lot more categories that were brought in this year. I'm assuming it's to give, all the genres or all the elements of anime and manga a fair shot. The only problem is I'm not an expert on most of them to talk about. But then when it came to making this anime awards worse, they still kept the fan voting process, but the nominations were still bullshit. What I mean by that is, before I get on the whole, My Hero Academia is turning into the new, Yuri on Ice here, there were a lot of Season 2s or continuations of an anime that have been nominated in general, which, honestly, I think I find that to be extremely unfair. I mean, despite the show being popular, which I can understand, but if you're putting in Season 2s for everything, the newer shows basically have no chance of survival. And that was clearly explained with second season of My Hero Academia taking over, taking over 7 of, I think, was 13 categories that we had for the awards this year? That's over half of the awards that were presented, and that is not good. That is extremely not good, and don't get me wrong, I love My Hero Academia. I really do. I think out of all the shonen shows that we've had in the past, My Hero Academia definitely has reached some new territory that we haven't seen yet from a mainstream shonen show. But does it really deserve all the awards that I just mentioned before? I think the only thing that it did, or the two things that it did deserve, were Best Hero, because, there were not many, good hero-villain shows that came out from this year anyway, so why not Deku to start off? But then, also Best Boy, because I think Todoroki has been one of the best male characters I ever have seen so far from last year. It's probably given. But what really angers me, more than just Best Action, Best Animation, or all that, but it's the fact that for Best Girl and Best Boy, they put in 2 characters from the exact same show. So, not only was Ochako a nominee for Best Girl, Sui was also nominated. And they're in the same show. And then for Best Boy, not only Todoroki was in there, but Deku was also in there, even though Deku was already nominated for Best Hero anyway. How fair is it to have 2 characters from the same show, while other single characters from one show are basically left in the dust, and most of the Best Girl, Best Boy characters, they're probably not even cared about, or considered to be Best Boy, Best Girl in the anime community. However, though, I have no qualms in my mind that if My Hero Academia was not the most nominated for the categories, it definitely would have been Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, which I think is more BS. Okay, I will give it credit that it won Best Comedy, because a lot of people in the anime community talked about how really hilarious this show was, and before Pop Team Epic came out, this was the show to present, like, the most comedic memes. And I am not doubting it for that. I have no doubt in my mind. It's just, Dragon Maid's not my show because it's basically looting every single dragon that turns into a girl as much as possible. But what really angered me, though, was that Dragon Maid won Best Ending. Best Ending. I mean, just the best opening and endings in general really angered me because I listened to a lot of openings and endings, and there definitely have been a million times better opening and endings that were not even nominated in the first place. I mean, the Maiden Abyss opening and endings were not nominated. Kakegurui's opening was not nominated. Like, and that was the most artistic thing I've ever seen. And the jazz music was actually extremely clever. But no, that was not put in there. But to have something just blandly cutesy as the Dragon Maid ending be the winner of Best Ending? Is this the standard that we're basically setting for anime openings and endings? Do people not know what a good opening or good ending is anymore? When it came to the other categories that were not My Hero Academia nominated or Dragon Maid nominated, they were pretty, predictable, but they were also pretty interesting at the same time. According to the Crunchyroll website, Best Continuing Series was March Comes In Like a Lion, which makes sense because I remember when the first season of the show came out, people went ballistic. And and don't get me wrong, I love that show. But I also found Continuing Series to be kind of BS at the same time because they had Dragon Ball. They had Naruto Shippuden, which ended 2 years ago? 3 years ago? I don't even remember. And they also have Detective Conan in the nomination. And I'm like, really? I don't know anyone who talks about Detective Conan, and I don't care how long that show's been around. So honestly, for any continuing series, especially for the most mainstream shows, I mean, don't get me wrong, Dragon Ball and Detective Conan are probably going to be surviving for a million more years. But if you're going to be putting them for every single continuing series, that's just going to make those shows less and less popular. And for March Comes In Like a Lion to be nominated, that's definitely a step towards the right direction. Because March Comes In Like a Lion came out, I think, late 2016? So it's a fairly new series, and it definitely deserves the praise that it's getting, because the show is pretty deep as anything, basically. And I just hope that for the later years to come with the Crunchyroll Anime Awards, that they would put more series like March Comes In Like a Lion to be nominated for Best Continuing Series, and I believe this is where the Season 2, Season 3s definitely belong. So, My Hero Academia Season 2 should have been in this, and I think it actually was in this category, but it just didn't win. Surprise, surprise! But, yeah, all the Season 2s should have went in here unless they had a really good opening or ending. Unless, that's the only exception. And then for Best Drama, I kind of saw this coming because this series was also blowing up when it first came out. The Ancient Mongoose Bride. I tried watching this series, but I just couldn't really get into it. But I can understand why everyone else can, because even though it's almost a pretty cliche story, it's a beautifully animated show, and the drama comes from more, I think, character backstory rather than in-the-moment drama, even though there's some in-moment drama in there. But I think I can see why this won, and I'm not complaining too much about it. I was really happy when I looked up Best Slice of Life, because was this my favorite show on the face of the planet? No, but it definitely did deserve the win due to its creativity, and that was Girls' Last Tour. I mean, trust me, if My Hero Academia and Dragon Maid were not in the nominees, I believe Girls' Best Tour could have knocked out most of the categories. Speaking of which, I'm also surprised that the opening for Girls' Last Tour was also not nominated. I mean, that was the most talked about opening. I think it was just because of that stupid dab thing, but I thought the Crunchyroll Awards would be eating this up, especially with how popular Girls' Last Tour was. It's just, moe girls traveling a post-apocalyptic world and they don't know if they're gonna survive the next day or not. Like, that's a really interesting premise, and for Slice of Life, I'm pretty glad it won. And then, Best CGI, I definitely saw this coming because, again, it was very talked about when it first came out, and I was surprised how popular this show got because the opening was pretty slow, and I think the series is still slow, and plus the main character is annoying. As I mentioned in one of my impressions videos, it's Land of the Lustrous. Land of the Lustrous, I will admit, is one of the best designed 3D animation anime I have seen in a while. Like people have been giving CGI in anime a pretty bad rep because for a long while companies did not know how to use CGI properly and it just looked more fake than it would if you just drew it in 2D. However, with Land of the Lustrous, I saw no problems with Land of the Lustrous. I mean, there were more problems inside the show that are not CGI, but when it came to the animation of this, holy damn. It was beautiful to look at, and I'm pretty glad that Land of the Lustrous won for that. Best film, I saw this coming, Your Name. I mean, it was the one movie that blew up all over the world, and trust me, it's an anime masterpiece. Kyoto Animation can't do anything wrong. It was downright beautiful, and I mean, I would have thought that A Silent Voice would have been second place, but I've been told that Your Name and Silent Voice were pretty much neck and neck when it came to winning this award. So I'm like, okay. So, I mean, I'm glad Your Name won. I still haven't seen it yet, and I really, really want to because I want to see how good this movie actually is. And now for the last bit of the awards, which I haven't talked about yet. Best Score in Anime of the Year. They're kind of interesting. And I think these two awards definitely blew this whole awards show out of the water, even though they tried to make this show more the style of the Oscars, which just the presentation of it looked downright stupid in my opinion. But for Best Score, it was won by Made in Abyss, which, by the way, happens to be one of my favorite shows from 2017. Like, the score for Made in Abyss happened to be one of my favorite scores, and I'm really, really glad that it won. Because the music really set the tone for what Made in Abyss was supposed to be. It sounded original. It sounded like you were stuck in the show, that you're watching this happen to these characters that you really, really care about. Like when something like terrifying happens, it shows you it's really, really terrifying made by music. And then when it's something really sad, it plays something really, really sad to make you really, really sad. And then when it's something really cutesy, of course the music would be all glittery and cutesy, and the score matched the show perfectly. If you guys haven't, noticed already, of course I'm gonna mention that Made in Abyss also won Anime of the Year, which is a complete surprise in comparison to how many awards that My Hero Academia Season 2 had won already. But this winning right here definitely shows that the anime awards are trying at best. Because, hey, Made in Abyss is, honestly, a far superior show than what Yuri on Ice was. I mean, don't get me wrong, I also loved Yuri on Ice when it first came out, or when I saw it. It definitely pulled a lot of stops for the social improvements and also some of the animation improvements that anime could possibly do. The only problem with Yuri on Ice is the story is basically your sports story, and the animation for the ice skating scenes, they just keep repeating that same animation almost every episode, and it got really annoying very fast. And some of the characters, like, I guess it will show more in the Yuri on Ice movie or Yuri on Ice Season 2, but I kind of did not feel for them that much, except for Yuri K, Russian Yuri, and Victor. What Made in Abyss did differently is, as I said about the score before, it pulled you into the show. It kind of had many twists that this show had. Like, I remember when first watching this show, like, looking at the anime poster, it had Rico, Reg, and Nanachi on it, and they looked pretty cutesy and moe of sorts, and I thought this was just gonna be another fantasy adventure or moe show. Boy, was I wrong! I started watching this show and I was completely wrong. Like, this had probably the most dramatic elements I had ever seen in my life, and I had friends tell me that, oh, it's not really that dramatic, like, you don't see very terrible things happen. Oh, you see very terrible things happen. And it's not dramatic by, over-the-top shoujo anime standards. It's dramatic by, you have no idea what's going to happen next. Like, this is the show that you can predict what might happen, but it will go the complete opposite of your thinking. And this anime pulled all the stops, and I think that reason alone made this the best anime of 2017. I mean, you could say the same thing about Girls Last Tour, you could say the same thing about Land of the Lustrous or Ancient Magus Bride, but yeah, Made in Abyss really pulled out all the stops, and I think the part that really made people upset was, how come you can't do the same thing with the other categories that My Hero Academia won for? Like, you did something right with Made in Abyss making it the anime of the year, but you didn't do the same thing for Best Animation, or Best Action, or Best Opening, or Best Endings, or anything like that. Do I fully and entirely hate the Anime Awards for this? They're annoying. They're being very annoying, and they've been annoying for the past 2 years, but this year, they definitely made major improvements because, hey, at least the very same show has not been nominated for almost every single thing, and at least My Hero Academia did not win at least 10 out of the 13? I mean, I know 7 out of 13 is not much better, but it's an improvement, I suppose? These awards are very, very new, so I can understand that they're experimenting with how the show is going to work, or how the awards are going to work. And hopefully, with this experiment, they could learn from their mistakes and go forward with making these awards as real as Crunchyroll wants them to be. I mean, Crunchyroll's a service for basically English-speaking viewers, like you and me. Like, I know America is pretty different when it comes to viewing which anime because our cultures are different, but if you're going to be watching anime, that means you're going to be subjecting yourself to what the Japanese have to offer. And trust me, it took me plenty of years to learn the cultures and the rules from Japan. Like, the fact that they pretty much have a lot of LGBT positive anime, even though in, like, some parts, if not all, like, marriage equality for the LGBT community almost doesn't exist. Like, I read an article once that Disneyland Tokyo, like, finally said, you know what, like, F this, we're gonna let gay people get married, and kudos to Disneyland, but that means to me that not a lot of places in Japan's, like, can accept being gay or lesbians be a thing yet. And considering how modern of a society that we are, I think, or at least I hope, shows like Yuri on Ice, even though I've said it a million times already, or Gravitation, or Yuri Kuma, or Sakura Kiss can change perspective on this. Like, these tropes are not there just to please people. Like, LGBT couples do exist, and this needs to be acknowledged. I mean, America gets a kick out of these LGBT shows because we're also in the same problem, even though, like, in modern times, like, all America is supposed to allow gay marriage. Like, also, like, other anime shows, like some of the more underground stuff that no one knows about, they do tackle other serious topics. They tackle racism, they tackle, terrorism, they tackle crime, and they tackle a lot of things. And hopefully in the years to come, like, depending on how the show delivers how this topic is handled, I hope those shows can make it onto the nominations this time. And not just whatever the internet is making memes of, or whatever the internet, like, finds super duper popular. Because for every entertainment community, as I'd like to call it, there's always a diamond in the rough somewhere, and there's a group of people that are going to find it. So my hope for the Anime Awards in the future is they take these lessons and they take advice from the anime community and they evolve their awards further rather than diminishing them just for the mainstream, but also for the underground. Like, I bet for next year that shows like Pop Team Epic and Violet Evergarden are probably gonna make the awards because of how popular they are already and how anticipated they were already. But trust me, I've been also watching a couple shows from this season already, and though some of them are not the best, some of them are definitely worth mentioning. I'm Cait, and it's been real. Ciao!